Thank you everyone for sharing those things. Harvest Sunday is a time where we remember how good God has been to us in the gifts of plants and the food that we have on our tables, the shelters over our head. And it's also a time when we remember, not only in thankfulness what God has given us, but we remember the needs of this world. We remember those who don't have as much as maybe we do. And that's why at the end of the service, these stalls will be an awesome opportunity. Please do stick around at the end of the service. We're finishing obviously a little bit earlier this morning, so we can have these stalls together. And all the money that we give to these stalls as we enjoy sweets and cakes and whatever else there is on those stalls is going to go to Rainbow of Hope, which is an amazing homeless charity run by some Christians in Cardiff to bless people with some money so that they can have God's provision too. So, I just want to take, though, a few minutes to unpack this message, this story that we heard read to us by our Lego friends there, the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. And when I think of this story, children, it makes me actually think of something that you guys do in school. Now, I know Sundays is a time where we don't like to think about school. You know, school's not till tomorrow. But there's a subject that probably you children do in school every single day, probably. It begins with M, and it includes little symbols that you use to put things together and make something else. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Yes? Maths. Who likes? Put your hands up. If you... Dav Morse's hand was up before I'd even asked the question, because he loves maths. He's given his life to maths. Put your hands up if you like maths. Oh, great. We've got some maths fans in the room. Okay. Well, before I unpack this story, because this is going to help us as we learn this story from Jesus, John's going to put up on the screen behind me some colourful pictures which are actually maths equations. Are you ready, people? Back to school. We've got some maths equations. Let's see this first one on the screen. I wonder, children, who can tell me the value of each of these pieces of fruit? This is quite tricky, I have to say. This is slightly advanced. So tricky that when I looked at these, I've got to give you a little insight. I have no idea what the answer is to this. I'm rubbish at maths, and I thought I'll just let the people in the room help me. Okay, Alfie Swarfield, which one are you going to go for? Give me the value of one of the pieces of fruit.
The watermelon ones is 12.
The watermelon ones are 12. Anyone else agree? Yeah, fantastic. Okay, how about then, anyone got the orange, or whatever that fruit is, peach?
I want to.
Kate, have you got it? That's the noise we make when we eat an orange or a peach or whatever that is. Yeah, the peach equals. Okay, Zach, come on, give us the value of that one. I don't know, is it 8?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great, it's 8, fantastic, amazing. And then what is the banana? Ooh, if the peach is 8, and minus the banana equals 3, what could the banana be? Let's go for Poppy.
I know, 5.
5, are we correct? Yeah, okay. Let's just have one more of these slides up. I've got a few if you want an afternoon's worth. I've got loads on there. Okay, take your time. Have a look at the screen. Can we work out? I'm going to call this a planet. I'm going to call that a helmet. And I'm going to call that a rocket. So, planet, helmet, rocket. I've got some very keen mathematicians in the room. So I'm going to have to spread the load because clearly there's some very talented mathematicians. I'm going to wait just to see. Yeah, Ruben, have you got... Which one do you think? The planet is 7. Are we right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well done. How about the helmet? Anyone got the helmet? Rachel. The helmet is 4. I think that's right. Okay, yeah. So what then is the rocket?
11.
Who cheated and didn't even The rocket is 11. Fantastic. Okay, thank you guys. Now, there was a day 2,000 years ago where I think one of the most strange maths equations in the history of the world took place. 5 loaves plus 2 fish equals enough food for over 5,000 people. If you went to your teachers tomorrow and you said 5 plus 2 equals enough food for more than 5,000 people, what do you think they would say to your maths? That doesn't sound right, does it? And yet, this is what actually happened. 2,000 years ago, Jesus went up to a mountain to pray, and the crowds gathered to him, and they came to listen to his teaching, and they came to be healed of their sicknesses. We read of this in all 4 of the Gospels. And the crowd said, "We want to stay with you, Jesus," but the disciples said, "Let's get rid of them. We haven't got enough food for all these people." And Jesus said, "No, why don't you give them something to eat?" Before you know it, this little boy comes with his packed lunch, 5 loaves, 2 fish, and there's enough food for the whole crowd. Now, I want us in this room to build this sum and to try and work out, how did this happen? How is this possible? Let's build this sum together, okay? First piece of the sum, I'm going to stand over here. First part of the equation, do you know what we had? We have a world in need. We have a world in need. Can you all say that together? 3, 2, 1.
World in need.
Let's do it again. 3, 2, 1.
World in need.
We have a world in need. In verse 14 of Matthew's Gospel, chapter 14, verse 14, we read that this crowd came to him because they were sick. There was lots of people with sickness. This is a thermometer, which reminds us, we use this when we're feeling a bit poorly, and maybe you've got a temperature. This reminds us that our world is full of broken bodies. Our world is full of we get colds and sniffles. Maybe there's some people here not here today in church because they're feeling poorly and unwell. Maybe we've got people in our families whose bodies are not working properly and there's sickness in the world. We've got a world in need that suffers from sickness, like the people who came to Jesus that day. They came to him to be healed because they were sick. Our bodies are broken. Not only that, but the disciples called this place where these people were coming to Jesus a desolate place. This world in need isn't just broken bodies, but this is some mud. Look at that mud. Oh, lovely mud. Soil from my garden this morning. It was a desolate, a dusty place. We're reminded, actually, that word desolate, it means kind of like barren, broken. The world itself, the earth we live in, doesn't always work as it's supposed to. Even today, over in America, they've had some terrible natural things happen, natural hurricanes and things happening where the world is not working in a way that always helps human beings to live happily. So we've got broken bodies, we've got a broken earth, and on this side of the equation as well, we've also got empty bowls. The disciples say we've got not enough food to feed all these people. There was a lack of food. Even today in the world, there are countries where there's massive food shortages, children. Most of us in this room, we probably are blessed to have maybe 2, maybe 3 meals a day put on our table to eat, to fill our bodies. Hello, sorry Emma. But, you know, there's lots of people in the world that don't have enough food. But actually, I think this empty bowl speaks of our souls as well. See, our bodies are broken, the world that we live in doesn't work as it should, but also we live with a kind of emptiness in our souls. Some people have talked about like a God-shaped hole. We were made to live in friendship with God, and yet we all actually feel empty at some time or another. We try to fill it with busyness or with relationships or with money or with all kinds of things to distract us, but really, we as human beings, our souls are empty without God. So, on this side of the equation, is this looking good, people? To feed 5,000 people, here's what we've got. We've got some broken bodies, we've got a broken earth, and we've got some empty souls. This isn't looking good. To see abundance and life come, I'm not sure about you, but on this side of the equation, we're going to need something else, okay? Well, okay, this is where a world in need plus, put the plus sign, plus... Yeah, let's get the plus sign out, Is this going to help our equation, right? On this part of the equation, we've got a church in need. Can you say that with me? 3, 2, 1. A church in need. We've got a world in need plus a church in need. In the story, we have the crowd, broken bodies, part of a broken earth, and empty souls. But they come to these disciples. These people who are followers of Jesus. They discovered that Jesus was a saviour sent by God. They had given their lives to follow this man and they put their hope in him. And you think, okay, surely they're going to help the equation then, right? Surely the church in need is going to come to the world in need, plus together, and we're going to get something good out of this. Let's see what happens. Jesus says to his followers in verse 16 of Matthew 14, you feed these people. And what do the disciples say? Jesus, there's 5,000 people, and all we've got is a little boy with his packed lunch. You see, faced with Jesus' command, the disciples are confronted with their own need. They had limited resources. Look at this little money bag. Yeah, I can see eyes getting bright with excitement. Let me tell you, Molly knows enough. There's not much money in here. And the disciples looked in their pockets and they looked around and said, we haven't got enough. They had limited resources. They looked at their hands and they find a measly meal. Do you know, if you're part of Grace Church or if you're a follower of Jesus, sometimes when you look at the needs of the world and then you look at what we've got, you think, how can we make a difference? We haven't got enough. Not only that, they didn't just have limited resources, they also had limited faith. Look what I've got here. It's like they had glasses on their eyes that was darkening their vision. Here before them was Jesus, the Son of God, but their horizons were limited by just what they could see in their hands. They had limited resources and they had limited faith. Children, I wonder, do you sometimes struggle to have faith that God is really real and that he's really big and that he's really loving? Yeah, sometimes we have questions, don't we? We're like the disciples. Sometimes we struggle to see what God is doing. And so they brought to this need their limited resources and their limited faith. They brought one more thing to this side of the equation. They brought limited love. See, God has given us hearts like this lovely ball of string. Hearts that are meant to beat with love for him and love for other people. But what happens when we turn away from God is our hearts begin to be unraveled. And all of a sudden they don't work as they should, and actually they get a bit twisted up and concerned with other things. And here these disciples, they saw these crowds, these needy people, and what should they have thought? Oh, we love them, we want to help them. But instead, do you know what they thought? Send them away. What a nuisance. I've got enough needs of my own. Let's get rid of the crowd. Who of us, if we're really honest, when we look at the needs of the world, our hearts don't quite work as we think they should. They don't love people as God has loved us. They look at people as an inconvenience instead of precious people made in God's image. Okay, we're nearly done, children. You're being very patient. But we haven't quite completed our equation, have we? Well, if we have, we're in a bit of a mess. Because we've got, on the one hand, a world in need, lack of broken bodies, broken world, broken souls. And then on the other hand, we've got a church in need, limited resources, limited faith, and limited love. How is this going to happen? Is there something we can add as one final piece to the equation that could see life and abundance come to people in need? I wonder, is there something that we could add? A world in need plus a church in need equals not a lot. But a world in need plus a church in need plus God. Plus God, and plus in this case, Jesus. God in flesh equals abundance and life for all. You see, into this equation steps Jesus. And Jesus has, I want you to say this with me, boundless love. Boundless love. 3, 2, 1.
Boundless love.
Jesus steps in and he sees the crowd not as an inconvenience. He sees them as precious people loved by God, and his heart wants to feed them and do them good. He has compassion on them, we read in Matthew's Gospel. He doesn't just see them as a need to fix even. But you know, even the fact he wants a meal with them shows he wanted fellowship, friendship with these people. And do you know what? The next time, do any of you children know when the next time that Jesus would be breaking bread was? Anyone know where the next time in the gospel story, where here he takes the boys' loaves and he breaks bread and he thanks God for it? Do you know when the next time he would do that is? Anyone know? Probably. Fantastic. Did you hear that? Just before Jesus died, he broke bread and he gave it to his followers. He said, this is what my body is going to do for you. I'm going to be broken on the cross because I love you so much that I want to provide heaven's blessing for your life. I want you to know God's healing and God's forgiveness in your souls. And so I will be like the broken bread so that you can become my friends. Jesus had boundless love. Not only that, Jesus had boundless power. Boundless power. 3, 2, 1. Boundless power. He adds into the equation boundless love and boundless power. What does that mean? He takes the bread and the fish, 5 loaves, 2 fish, and he multiplies it so that how many? How many people could eat? 5,000 people could eat the food. The last time a miracle like this took place in the Bible was in the story of the Exodus, where God caused bread to rain down from heaven. And so here we see Jesus doing what only God can do. Why? Because Jesus is God. That's the miracle. He's doing what only God can do, showing that he is God. He brings into the equation of a needy world and a needy church boundless love and boundless power. And finally, this is what he brings into the equation. He brings into the equation an invitation. An invitation. To the disciples, he says, give me what you've got. If you're part of the church today, you look at your resources, you look at your faith, you look at your love, you think, I don't have enough for what this world needs. But Jesus says, just give me what you've got. I know you don't have enough, but give what you've got to me, and let's work together to see blessing come to this needy world. If you belong to Jesus, can I encourage you today, adults or children, just give your heart to Jesus. Give him what you've got. You might feel small and like it's not enough, but with Jesus, he can use it to bless many people. There's an invitation to the needy church, but there's also an invitation to the needy world. Maybe you're here this morning, you're not a follower of Jesus. Do you know what he said to the crowds? His invitation was this. We read it in Matthew 14. He says, sit down and eat. Sit down and eat. Jesus, his invitation for you, if you don't know him today, is just receive the gift that he wants to give you. Just sit down and eat what he has done for you. Say yes to his love for you, shown on the cross when his body was broken for you. Say yes to his power to change your life and to bring you hope of everlasting life when he rose again from the dead. Sit down and eat. He wants to be your friend. He wants to come into your life. And so why don't you just today say, Jesus, I know that I'm part of a broken world. I know that even if I follow you, I'm not going to be the one who can change this world. And so, Lord, I want you in my life to be the one who makes the difference. Children, when it comes to maths, Jesus changes everything. And when it comes to our lives, Jesus changes everything. We're in a needy world. We're a needy church. But when we add Jesus into the equation, we can see God's blessing come to many, many people. The question we face today is, will we bring ourselves to him? And will we receive from him what he wants to give us? His love and his life in place of our sin and our brokenness. That is the invitation we find in this story. Well done so much, children, for listening well there. But for all of us, let's take this message on board and let's respond now to Jesus in prayer and by singing 2 songs to close before our stalls come out. So why don't you stand with me to your feet if you're able.